Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here again. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is peace and harmony. How can I get unaddicted, unstuck from this female psychopath relationship? Someone who has really done him in when to the point that they are in a state of basically suspended belief right now, and how, just sort of how do you get your feedback on reality when you. So I think that's a great viewer question, and we tackle a lot of this in our videos here. Getting unstuck, getting perspective, getting sort of out of that psychopath zone, because there's a contradiction and a locus and loss of a locus of control when you're in a relationship with a female psychopath. Unfortunately, these are the type of people who will drag others into trouble, who will invite sort of the risk in behaviors. They will bring risk back to risky behavior, living life large and in charge. There's oftentimes then a demoralizing or a demasculizing of those others when it comes to the relationship and the aftermath. The problem is the hyper arousal, that high risk behavior tendency in a female psychopath who does not have really a conscience. That sort of morality, that sort of integrity stands for something. It seems a lot more fun, perhaps, the seduction, the temptress, the lewd behavior that seems, I guess, for centuries, seems to be, almost a sign of someone's wealth, as if they have the ability to be as lawless, to go with this female psychopath, and then the following and ensuing sort of scratching of one's head and wondering what happened, but all the while sort of still desiring this trouble, still wanting of this highly distraction, highly sort of hyper stimulating individual that is basically been in the mind's and heart's eye. That is the problem with a female psychopath, is the psychopath will break others down by constantly wanting others to think about them, meaning they're always wanting to be in the text, in the email, in the picture, the joke, whatever it is. They want you to be constantly desiring them, and that desire seems, I think, for a lot of people, an immediate gratification or very gratifying. Oftentimes a sense of relief, a loss, sort of helps to reduce tension when they meet these sort of women that seem very strong, emblazoned, emboldened, taking you like the man that you are, showing you, your virility. Why don't you go ahead and take that medicine? Yeah, we can do it all night, all weekender. They're sort of taking you down a very small hole that you don't realize that you're being led into, that's constantly causing you to desire this dissatisfaction in chasing. This chasing really becomes the behavior when your body then is really leading the show. I would say in a female psychopath, because of the hyper arousal, your people sort of their body, their impulses, their physical needs, what ends up getting toyed with is that sort of limbic brain, that reptilian brain, that primordial urge that's just like roaring louder than any lion in a wilderness kingdom. I mean, just the man feels like so strong, or like so wanted, or so desiring, ravishing, or in business, just so crushing it, so killing it. Just, you're so the man, you're so the man, I told you did this. And just the hotels, the toiletries, the whatever, boutique shopping, whatever, the awards, whatever comes along the accoutrements with this relationship. It's 24/7. It feels like that, but for them, it's just another part that they're playing. But the part that they assume seems all encompassing, but it's what becomes derailing is when you realize that they are not what they had appeared or pretended or even who they were being or becoming. So it's very strange that to see sort of simultaneous behavior that is purely false or acted out in nature, simultaneous with like a completeness, along with 100% in another direction, in another way that's contradictory, and all the while it was premeditated and predetermining, how you were going to be desiring this whole desire, this gratification, need to see you, need to work this out, I can't stand this any longer, that sort of delirium that people get really elevated on. And they can't calm down from. And then she gives one more little picture and you're like, let's talk it out, or whatever mayhem that people get very irrational as they get into the high risk, meaning it takes you out of the ordinary, out of the norm. And it gets and it changes a perspective and a way of interacting with the environment that is completely reigned by them, whether you want to say or admit or have seen the red flags that you could have called it then. But part of that override is that the red flags are there, but then there's a solidification of some sort of reward or intrinsic gratification that you're going to get from this set experience. Instant promotion, instant raise, instant gratification, instant gourmet, instant hotel bed sheets, instant trip, you're going to Tahiti. You never thought you'd go there, but here you go. You never thought you'd do this. You never thought you would do this to your children, your bank account, your wardrobe, your head, your business, and here you go, you're doing it, and you're wondering why. You've got these strange questions that just don't seem to get answered, and of course there is no closure. That really is part of that delirium, and part of there's an addiction though of that hyper arousal, the limbic system, that sort of primal, that was so part of, I would say, integral to, it seems like a building of a relationship, but it's really a destroying of a channel of a sensibility within. So it's kind of like they're miners of people and their attention, and so that they can pick up to study and learn and replicate and duplicate what appears to be a mother, what appears to be a business partner, what appears to be a fiancé. And there's so much, I think, that is built into the looking forward. So that there's a lack of the female psychopath, sort of because of that lack of conscience. They don't have that morality and judgment going on. There's inactivity in brain scans in those areas of the brain of female psychopaths and male, but where the activity is just not, actively going. And they have reduced activity in the amygdala, where that fear center, they're just not feeling any fear. It gives them an ability to attend a board meeting and give a presentation without failing. They do not feel fear, nervousness, female or male. The ability to dissuade or persuade people past things. Oh, can't I just get on this plane? Can't I just get this promotion? You find that they're all of a sudden lunching with other people in an organization, parking their car in very peculiar ways, leaving certain things around that gets people looking at, things are strange, but you don't know quite what's up. and you're sort of always at the tail end of sort of but feeling dragged along. There's a magnetism that oftentimes forces people's behavior into them doing things other than what they would imagine or want for themselves. Man taking ballet, a man doing headstands, whatever, whatever other depraved things, that the high risk behavior that people, I think once you're in a relationship, there's sort of an entrainment, there's a sinking in of heart, of breathing, where they're purely observational, and you're all in it. You're head over heels. You're flying to South Africa. You're bringing home taxidermy animals for your rug to sleep in. Who knows what crazy fantasies that are brewing. And then there's usually with a female, there's usually going to be some sort of well, didn't you feel sorry for them? They had such a hard time. There's going to be some sort of sob story that usually goes along with a female psychopath sort of. It's all premeditated, predetermined, meaning they know the outcome for this one, that one, everything. People who they marry, they know the outcome, deliberate and premeditated, pre-calculated. But we were so in love, but this was for years. You can see that's the bud that just keeps going in people and keeps people reeling, and they cannot rein in what is this hyperarousal addiction. I would say into a very discrete neurochemical combination, like a test tube that should not be put into in science class, like the arousal of your lust, hyperarousal of your lust organs, your just sort of getting into this sort of euphoria, where you're almost you've got an oxytocin with this person, like a newborn and a mother. I mean, you're just feel in the arms of this person, in the arms of an angel, the arms of a goddess, whatever other descriptors, that there's none other better. But it would be all well and good if there was conscience, if there was heart, if there was something warmth underneath it all. But the problem with that is it's all really a feign and to taint, meaning to corrupt, to demoralize, to use that yardstick of their inability to sort of pipe down. A female psychopath does not sort of settle down, always sort of on the go. Apparently can do things beyond most people's imaginings, and they find themselves exchanging numbers with people. How did you get that person's number? And you're now doing what? They're selling things, or they're going to the church and they're selling some tools, and they're getting money that they say just strange combination of things that you would say, why is this woman doing these, and apparently making these large steps for mankind along the way, or making things a lot more fun. They seem to make it when it's really kind of like an unwitting addiction. Hyper arousal, meaning seeing things different. She's got you in her grips. This is very relieving for a lot of men, I think, who are sick of trying to always be the strong one, the one to lead. Here comes this supersonic woman who's going to hone you down, and all of your responsibilities or those sort of regular limitations seem to throw out the window. And your Superman, Herculean, whatever other, your family doesn't recognize you. Your family doesn't recognize you, though, and you're unhappy, meaning you can't look yourself in the mirror. There's something corruptive. You don't feel just you're like your eyes are sort of popping out of your head, meaning your body is running your lower lust energies that lead to aggression. I mean, these get whipped out of control by the hyperarousal, the psychopathic tongue, the maladies that are sort of strewn up, where they're talking about things in apparent areas you shouldn't talk about things, and just pushing the envelope. and then apparently getting results or answers or love making or money making or whatever travels, that all of a sudden your jet life is just, when you thought everything was boring, and then you find out something. In other words, it's all been a planted. I mean, they plant shoes at your house. Oh yeah, they will plant things at the office. I was working here. They might even bring big things in to make it seem like they're really helping out. Why are you, why are you bringing in this and this from your kitchen, or why are you bringing your tirade of these friends, into this office when you're supposed to have, like, just they're just breaking the rules, and it just seems to go unquestioned, and they don't even seem to acknowledge it. They just help themselves. It's sort of a very the way that they can just sort of cycle through people and leave other people with their heads spinning, and it's very scary because it's disorienting, to say the least. But they sort of pull people out of their body in a very deformative way, meaning to take and make askew, run amok their tendencies and their needs for focus, attention, and other values that they need to be satisfied, that they're apparently missing. That a female psychopath, because they're devoid of a consciousness, because they're devoid of morality, because they don't feel fear, they can exhibit certain behaviors, certain relationship styles, and get themselves into places with things, whatever really, I mean, they'd say whatever you want, but oftentimes getting there without the necessary work or credentials or things of that nature, meaning that because they lack fear, they can break certain laws and not feel natural, healthy fear, which is important. I mean, a healthy shame. In other words, you wouldn't walk outside naked. That's healthy shame. But these are the type of women who show up into meetings with apparent, sheer clothing, just strange, just very inappropriate, and yet they're not challenged. They have this seductress sort of energy that causes other people to, it's almost like, I would say, like a stun gun. And this is sort of the way that they sort of get people. They're different from the ordinary, and whatever percent of the person, 1 to 4%, but they have kind of a stun gun, like, they get people into a certain following, almost like a cult-like method of entrancement, in entrainment, which basically, I think men, they lose unwittingly certain control over certain wisdom and limitations that they know within, but they're being violated and taken advantage through hyper arousal to go beyond. And then there's that they should then be proud of themselves, and and they're experiencing the resolution of all these other unmet goals before. Never dated any woman like this, not ever any boss like this, or just with children raising, sort of hypersexualizing everything, and not a lot, being very distracting. Again, breaking other people down by having them constantly thinking about them, and never sort of being in your own within and being free in that regard. There's a real reptilian, I would say, midbrain aggression component that they have in their way of moving people out of their healthy balance. Meaning, if someone has an abundance of some quality that they want to observe, study, and possess to use for their repertoire. For example, a female psychopath, she might see other women baking for their loved one, going out and getting hot chocolate, doing certain things together, and they have no inherent organic feeling of doing of such, but they go, well, it apparently seems that a man likes to hold hands and do the, so that they will play, but it seems to the point that they get married, still on dating sites, married, travels with other escapades behind people's back, and apparently covering things up to the point you couldn't even imagine. So because they don't have that fear, it gives them the ability to plan and execute and do things that I would just say a natural organic woman would not. It would be too violatory of one's inner nature. And leveling basically with the ultimate demise to level down. They are intra-species predators, Dr. Robert Hare, meaning they really want to take down others. And they get an amusement and entertainment. What is their satisfaction? A couple of heartbeats. I think that's all that they get. They get their sense of quote unquote being in a relationship when it's not a relationship. It's purely a physical. They purely physical make others physicals, meaning devoid of any other humanity. Meaning that's just, it's sort of, if you're along with them, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. It's a disorientation. And then there's this sort of immortal shame that seems to be very difficult to leave or get that reprieve from. Meaning, like, how do I get this out then? Men then, become hyper aroused, not able to sleep, not able to get it down, not able to do it enough, not able to eat enough, just out of their, just sort of that chemical within. Again, it's like the chemical is wreaking the havoc. That hyperarousal, meaning they know the effect that they're having unto others, but they do it anyway. What other tools do they use to addict? They tell people what they want to hear. You're the most da-da-da man. You're the da-da-da worker. You're, it's so, and then the little gifts that you think that no one else could give, they have a way to really get, and sort of, you're like, wow, this is really appropriate. Just things that, like, they will really hit the nail on the head with a lot of things. Again, I think because they do not feel fearful and they do not feel stress when other people do, it gives them the ability to walk through and conduct themselves and execute certain decisions and certain behaviors in a way that is intra-species predator based, meaning to take or to steal from another, like in business, all their clients, or, the home wrecker, and why would they do this? They're like a life on the run. They're just sort of, even though they're just sort of always, I think what another individual had described them as sort of going through others, just sort of like a merry-go-round, or just sort of, they just go through groups of people, meaning they just sort of have, and so, but when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to romantic, it's just like, how do you get back to feeling human again? In that you have to detox. There's a detoxing that must take place. You must find a way. You have to find a way to detox. Just, it's important enough. It's not, it's not grade A love here, okay? You're dealing with grade Z terror material. It's like, you're not dealing with love when you're dealing with this type of female. You are not. It's, even though there's a great appearance in a sundry and myriad ways, but once you have seen the mask drop and you see that there's a ploy, that there's a puppetry, that there's triangulation involved, where you get addicted because you're then always used to being on that sort of contingent based on paranoia dynamic. Triangulation, trying to make you fearful, trying to, and then say, well, you're the one who broke up this relationship when you did nothing of the sort. So there's this, you thought this was real, you thought this was a real gig, you thought this, and so they prey, they literally will prey on people for jobs, marriages. If they're very nomadic, it's just like they're hiding. They might very parasitic in nature. Oh yeah, tell me everything about the job. Very parasitic, and then all of a sudden they're talking about their private parts in a meeting, and you're like, no way. You're like, I cannot believe my very eyes, And then they get commended for it, or something like, oh, you're so calm the way that you just, that's a fierce leader. And so they will get, rewarded, or, publicly, everybody will like them. They're so attractive. They're so, whatever. And people don't ever sort of, when you're in that addiction, for the people who they really scope out, they really get down and into a masochistic lovemaking, where it's you don't know pleasure from pain, and then it's the lust for more pain, this sort of developing this perversion of hyper arousal, where then people can't see a sign for a sign. It's some other, it mysteriously represents some other facet of the relationship that's going to keep them all sort of on this altar plane of, it's like that you can and will come down from. You have to detox. You have to acknowledge and validate that you do not want a playmate that is destructive, that is poison, that is perilous, that will say all these things, yet appear very, very different. I mean, 7-foot stuffed up animal, how could that, be dangerous? Well, you do not want to find out. You don't want to feel then that your organic way of being is less thrilling or livable, and because oftentimes it makes then calm living, just existing, very difficult. There's a chemical excretion, I think, of a corticosteroid, and a real it's done in a very methodic way, meaning there's a real methodic way that they do, and that they conjure up, and they like to see the work of their doing. I think that's why they will do all these things, and they just continue to get away because of their duplicity, because of their ability to concealing, big concealers. Not even, they can conceal very well, pass lie detector tests. So very, there are certain qualities that you might have then associated with this, that like, on the level of, I don't want to say the paranormal, but the level of like Disney or some other love level that only could you find Gone with the Wind. I mean, this is the romance that the books have written about. Like this, are you kidding? Leave this woman? There's never, like, even though there's obvious that you should and can, but there's this inability to just be 100%. Why is that? Because of the arousal that is done by the shame. It's just, you have to disconnect from that demoralizing combo that they are, and realize that they have a very, they will create even sort of illnesses in others. They will create behaviors in others. Why did I just liquidate my whole home mortgage? Why? And then people find that they're doing things that they never had. That's their forceful energy. That's a really, and so really, saying, oh yeah, it's better at this and this side, to this is a better side of the tracks. Well, until you can go, nope, you've seen the exposure, you've seen the mass drop, when you've seen maybe a grave betrayal, and then you know that you're not just dealing with a toy maker, you're dealing with something more serious. You need to then recognize and classify that as a disaster. Like, it's just, and not even though conjugate it within your physical body, if that makes any sense. You cannot, and you will not. That addiction will be there, and I think it's most severe in the withdrawal, in the very beginning. But do it, you must. You must absolutely become unhinged from that sort of project of destruction, and then get yourself into a place, really, where things are a lot more holy. Not only holy, but there is a matrimony of like healing, and just sort of, a life will restore once you detox and use some of the tools in the videos that we, talk about detoxing, kind of getting out of that lethal cycle of hyper arousal, and realizing that it'll leave you unrecognizable, and it's just kind of a strange way to put their delirium that ensues from their type of anti-survival but parasitic sort of utilizing others to get their way through life. That's just sort of how they are. And then if you just let them go, and it's just like, hopefully it's just like, I am mincemeat, I'm not even worth dealing with. Why would you even stop at this person? Like, there's no even attractor, there's no even ability, there's not even in a scope for this type of predator, meaning like you're just totally out of their scope. Once you totally get that, you're okay with it. Meaning like you're okay within, and you realize they're in some other sort of conjugal outfit, but that is not meant for human habitation. There's something very inhumane about it, and so that's a red flag that you can get a lot of courage from acknowledging. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Have a beautiful day.